Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And buckle up. I think she's going to be ranting in this video. She sent this article over from Screen Rant that apparently Avatar: The Last Airbender was important because it was the first cartoon to have a lot of strong women in it.
Yeah. No, it wasn't the first, but it was, it was ahead of the curve of all these shows wanting to have strong female characters. And, look, I agree. It was a good show, and it did have a lot of strong female characters in it. That being said, there were many shows ahead of it that did the same. And of course, you have to bring up the new She-Ra.
Nobody remembers
Hannah.
that show.
Is that her name, Hannah?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Hannah Diffie. Hannah here, so probably a She-Ra stan who got a job working for one of these websites, getting paid very little.
One of her favorite games is Last of Us Part 2, so,
It tells you everything you need to know.
Right.
So let's talk about this. Actually, I'm probably going to sit back with popcorn and Geeky can talk about it. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. You'll get a woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
So before we get into this article here, I just want to bring this up. I think it's kind of funny because we've talked about the reason Avatar is coming up again is because of the voice actor controversy, right? That they're replacing pretty much all the voice actors because they're too white. And this is making the rounds again. This is ProZD, who's a YouTuber, and Permaband here has it on X. Yeah, he was like he was defending the recast because of the characters not being Asian, and then like a year later, he's like, I got an audition for a prominent cartoon where I was just sent the Asian character. Looking through the rest, I told my agent, hey, I'm happy to read for this, but can I read for some of these others? To which I was told, all those other characters are drawn as white, so no.
I'm just like, where?
Yeah, he wanted this. He basically said to cast authentically, you have to hire actors who resemble or relate to the characters they're playing. This is a guy who was out there who was like, we should be more authentic. Because I think what he thought was he was going to get more roles. Mm-hmm. And he's actually getting less roles now.
Yeah, which is kind of funny.
Maybe you can try out for Avatar because they're replacing everybody. I'm sure it's going to go very, very well. Anyway, let's talk about this. So you sent this over. Tell me what's going on.
So I saw this article and I was like, oh my God, here we go. And it's pretty much exactly what, you would think. I'm just like, was this a millennial chick who, watched the show when she was a kid? And of course, because, nothing, it's all going to be about stuff that was popular when she was a kid, which yes, mostly.
Right.
And It's just like, you always forget about what came before and what they're copying. Now, Avatar, I will give you 100%. It is an amazing show. Loved it. It was a whole, our family used to watch it. It was a whole, thing for us every night. It said it had rich world building, complex moral themes, anime-inspired animation, and then it had, other stuff, but they're talking about all the things that was great about it. But it was made for kids and to show what strength looked like, and more importantly, who got to be strong. 20 years later, it's easy to look back on Avatar as a technical and narrative triumph. True. Yeah. But what truly made the series revolutionary is its portrayal of female power. And not just in the presence of strong girls, but in the dominance of women as the most powerful non-Avatar characters across 4 nations. All 4 nations. So yeah, women were shown as women. And, you had strong women that were avatars and some that weren't. And could control things and didn't. And they're talking about that. But I mean, when I watched it, I thought it was a good show. And I just thought, it wasn't like made to be a point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're making it a point now, but it wasn't. I don't think that's what they were. I don't think that was the intention necessarily. They just want to tell a good story, and these characters have to be female.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that was done in anime for years before. And
yes.
We had so many. Some of the most popular anime series of all time had female protagonists or female teams.
And this is it was very much based on anime, you could tell.
Yeah. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all. But the thing is it wasn't so ham-fisted back then, right? It wasn't like, oh, did I mention, I'm a girl and also a girl. I mean, it did come up with, Sokka's girlfriend a little bit there, but like, it wasn't as in your face as it is now, right? It was just like kids just accept it because like, oh yeah, it's just a bunch of girls.
Here we go. In a media landscape where gender equality was still rare in children's shows.
In a media landscape.
Bullshit. You weren't around before that, obviously. Avatar did not just break the mold, it remade it. The question now is, has everything since lived up to the standard? Yes. The new She-Ra show, she says.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's
of course.
I mean, example.
Typical. I love this next part. Go ahead down to this paragraph. This is hilarious to me. I'm talking about the characters and stuff. And then they're saying about, there's a pattern that subverted the norms of most action adventure stories of the time. Azula, for instance, was not just a prodigy. She was brilliant and dangerous and complex, and she could surpass every other male firebender, including her brother. She was also batshit crazy.
She was batshit. She was the bad guy. She was
a nutter. You know who else was a really good character, strong, kick-ass, was really smart, and was a bad guy? Baroness.
Yeah,
but we didn't have strong women.
I'm going to bring this up.
G.I. Joe, bitches. Go look it up.
Some of the best female cartoon characters. We got Firestar, She-Ra, Chitara, the Baroness, Ariel, April, Diana from D&D, Gloria from Mask, Cleo the cat from Heathcliff. I don't know. Marge Simpson, yeah. RC and Jem. I'll give you RC and Jem. Cheer Bear, I guess. Lisa Simpson. Tila. Tila should be higher up the list, I think. Penny Gadget, Rainbow Bright, it goes on and on. A lot of anime characters, Nausicaa,
Right. Yeah. But I'm just like, so you're like, oh, this was a new thing. Like, did you watch G.I. Joe? Like, the women in the G.I. Joe show were like toe-to-toe equal, with the dudes. They had they couldn't beat up a woman, so obviously they'd win in fights. But you know what I'm saying? They were like, they each were their own personality, but they had their strengths and weaknesses, and they were portrayed as strong and being able to get it done and smart. And this isn't a new thing. Like, you guys keep acting like it's new. Maybe to you because you didn't see it. You're talking about all the things you related to because you were a kid, obviously millennial, but it's been done for years. And all you guys are ripping that shit off now to try to make new shows, like the She-Ra show you like so much, which was ripped off. And they go on about the different characters on there and about we talk about Katara, and they talk about the different people that are on there and stuff.
Right.
Yes, there was a lot of female characters, like Toph and stuff. There are a lot of female characters that were done really well. And you know how it was done well? It was done well? It was done well because you didn't stop and think, oh, it's a strong female character. Yes, I like that character. It wasn't, oh, and by the way, it's a woman. You didn't stop to think about that. You really, truly didn't.
No, our kids, I don't think we thought about it at all. Actually, Toph, they're going to nerf her. They're talking they're going to make her more feminine. And I mean, we're talking 20 years. I mean, this is a weird thing. You go back in time, like 20, 30, 40 years ago, in a lot of cases, things were more progressive than they are now. We're regressing. I mean,
I know, but that's not according to Hannah.
Well, we had the Mary Sue. I remember I will never forget this. The one Mary Sue writer who was going on and on about how there are no strong female characters in science fiction. She'd never watched Alien or Aliens. Mm-hmm. And then she went back and watched it. She's like, oh my God, Ripley was a strong female character in 1979. I'm
no shit.
What? Imagine that.
I mean, I'm just like, I think the fact that even recently they do, like, it's cliche, and that's true. But even before these shows that Hannah's talking about, it had been done well many times. And it's like, it's not a new thing. It didn't get invented with Avatar. So they go talk about, here, representation before it was trendy. Here, go down to that.
Okay. Representation before it was trendy.
Yeah. Right. And how it portrayed its characters, female characters. They're talking about Avatar aired strong female leads in Western. They keep saying Western because they're trying to argue, well, I'm talking about Western, not, anime. Children's programming, they were more the exception than the rule. Shows like the Powerpuff Girls or Kim Possible had started to push the boundaries, but Avatar went beyond token representation.
Wait. Hold on. The Powerpuff Girls, they were the lead in the show. Kim Possible, she was the lead in the show. It's not token representation.
No, it's not. But
they weren't sidekicks. They weren't love interests. They weren't, what I'm saying? That they were literally like, okay, fine. You want to talk about He-Man or whatever. And, Teela and Sorceress were kind of, even though they were incredibly powerful, they were side characters. Okay, fine. G.I. Joe, Baroness, Scarlet, and there's a whole bunch of guys, whatever. But literally the Powerpuff Girls and Kim Possible. I mean, throw Sailor Moon onto it. While you're at it, I
love this. It did not just give girls a seat at the table; it let them be the head of the table. And I'm like, you know what? here's the thing. When representation is organic and is done right and you have a really good, strong female character, that's usually the way it is. Like, they usually are not, they're not too much, so strong they have to make an example of men. Like we saw with the Last Jedi. I think the best example I could think of was when they had in The Mandalorian and they had all the female characters taking the bridge. You never even stop to think, oh, wow, that was all women, because it was just done so well. And it was like, they're not less than, they're not like greater than, they might be really good at what they do, but they're not arrogant asses about it. And you don't think about the fact that they're women. You just think, I love that character. That's when it's done right.
I'm sitting here like, okay, so they're like, unlike other shows this time, Avatar: The Last Airbender refused to define its girls by love interests or support roles. Powerpuff Girls didn't really have love interests. Kim Possible, Ron Stoppable was kind of a putz. Like, he wasn't.
Well, yeah, and then you have like, Rainbow Bright and all that stuff. They didn't have love interests in those either.
She had what was it the one kid Brian, then the one with the robot Chris, was it Chris? With the
Onyx, the horse.
And Onyx, the horse. But they weren't like, I don't think they were like romantically involved.
No, they didn't.
It was just like, he was just happened to be there,
There were Care Bears that were female characters that, they weren't.
Care Bears aren't having sex. I'm sure they are on DeviantArt.
Ponies were fighting flipping Satan. They also weren't getting it on. So I'm like, bullshit. There's lots of examples. The thing is, they predate her. It's probably the whole situation.
Yeah, I didn't watch those shows because those were just glorified toy commercials. I wouldn't taint myself with that subpar entertainment. But I'm going to go on about She-Ra, which is also based on a vintage toy line.
Oh, and it's okay then because it's girls fucking girls. So then it's okay, because it's representation. The girls in Avatar were not sidekicks. They were leaders, creators, and visionaries. So were they in a lot of shows back then. Even the show's villains. Yeah, like Baroness had depth and inner something I can't see because your hat's in the way, and weren't reduced to stereotypes.
Well, excuse me.
The complexity meant that viewers, especially young girls, could see themselves in a variety of roles, from warrior to scholar to spiritual guide. It's been done like that for years in cartoons and anime and stuff like that. It was not new. I love Avatar. And I think they did a fantastic job. Like I said, when you're not even thinking about the fact that, well, back then too, no one did. It wasn't until recently that you had to start, oh yeah, there's the black one, there's the lesbian, there's the woman, there's the wheelchair. You wouldn't think about this stuff until now. Because people like this person, like Hannah here, has trained people to be like that. You never really gave it much of a thought.
The Baroness and Evil Lynn were two of the greatest 80s cartoon villains of all time. They were awesome.
Hey, Rita Repulsa was a good one too. I didn't see her getting it on with anyone.
No. Zed. Eventually she married Zed.
Okay, Zed, but I'm just saying it wasn't like a driving force. You know what I mean? They're acting like it's a driving force. And they're talking about Avatar's achievement is more notable is that it predates the major wave of gender conscious media. Well, that's true. So do all the other shows that you're ignoring. Before Frozen redefined princesses and Steven Universe made emotional complexity a centerpiece of animated storytelling. Millennial. Because we got Steven Universe.
Obviously. Nobody fucking talks about Steven Universe anymore. Nobody talks about this.
They don't even bring it up.
Nope.
Avatar was already demonstrating that girl power could coexist with rich, emotional, intelligent storytelling. So are a lot of other shows in anime. It was not new to Avatar. This impact was not just in who was represented, but how it did so, giving its girls real agency, narrative weight in the inner worlds. Again, not exclusive to Avatar. It happened many, many, many times prior. So here we go. Go down. Has animation caught up since? And there's a stupid She-Ra reboot that sucked ass.
Okay, so here I want to point this out. We are still talking about Avatar. We are still talking about 80s cartoons. We're still talking about the Powerpuff Girls. We're still talking about Kim Possible sometimes. Nobody's talking about Netflix She-Ra. They're talking about She-Ra, but Mattel is only bringing classic toys out now. They're not even touching this one. And nobody talks about Steven Universe. I actually put Steven Universe in a thumbnail. We're talking about Cartoon Network. People were asking me who he was.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, they're like, I don't recognize that character. Who's he from? Where's he from? I'm like,
right. But this person who's obsessed with identity politics, is very focused on it.
Yeah.
2 decades later, it's fair to ask if kids media has learned from Avatar: The Last Airbender, which learned from anime and a bunch of shows that came before it. The answer is sort of. In the wake of Avatar's success, Western animation began to embrace more female-led narratives. Series like She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, again, a fucking ripoff of the 80s show, which also featured a bunch of strong female characters, and not all of them were interested in wanting to hook up with somebody. They were just out there getting their shit done. I mean, Adora had a flipping gun in her room. But yeah,
she had a laser cannon in her room when she was with the Horde, like a freaking full on.
I know, but the new show where it's all about, sleepovers, feelings. Princess parties, feelings, and who's sleeping with who, as many alphabet representation things as we can fill into it. It's far superior, don't you know? The Dragon Prince also, that was done really well. How to Train a Dragon, another one that was actually good. How to Build a Legacy, giving girls, places of the main character and side characters and adventurous, complex plots that existed for years before these shows.
Yes.
It's not new. None of this is new, Hannah. None of it's new. And then they're like, they go down here and they say about that said, they mentioned, wait, but go back up again. I'm sorry, I forgot to put this part. These shows, had set boundaries in both gender and queer representation. Right. It's representation.
Representation.
And they said, that said, the degree to which female strength is portrayed with variety as well as in Avatar and something is universally consistent. Too often, strong girls in modern media will still fall into narrow, that's true, this I agree with, into narrow molds like spunky tomboy or stoic warrior or misunderstood rebel. That I agree with you on.
I just keep thinking, though, this is actually make a good show. We had Punky Brewster. Let's have Spunky Tomboy, the Stoic Warrior. That's my new D&D 5e
The misunderstood
character.
Rebel.
Spunky Tomboy. Oh, God, that sounds dirty.
That sounds really wrong, actually. And they're talking about, this shows a spectrum of femininity. Okay, I do agree with this, actually. Because too often, we keep seeing that a strong female character has to be this, and this. And that's usually like, okay, Tila at the beginning of, Revelation. That's when they gave her the butch, half-shaved haircut and all that crap. So look, she's a strong one because she looks like that. And we had these like narratives, like things, and strength can be in different forms and could look in different ways in different people. And I do agree with that. But I don't think it's new, again, to Avatar. It was being done before then. And lots of things, especially anime, which is why they keep saying Western.
Right.
But, I don't disagree with that, that they keep like pigeonholing and clicheing it now.
Yeah.
But it wasn't before either.
God. Anime has been hit or miss. My Hero Academia and Demon Slayer have capable female characters, but they play second fiddle to their male counterparts.
Not really.
Depends on the series, though, too. You have to realize a lot of the popular series are based on shonen manga. They're based on, basically comics for teen boys. So, yeah, you're 99.9% of the time going to have a young male lead in those comics because that's what teen boys want to read about.
But a lot of them, like My Hero Academia and Demon Slayer, are like it's more like an ensemble type situation. And there are plenty of characters that are of varying strengths that are lead, as much of a lead as some of the male ones. That's not really true. They bring up Sailor Moon, which is one thing you said to me. Yeah. Sailor Moon's a good example. But again, that's not the Western ones, but yeah, it's been going on for years. It's exceptions like that one show in Sailor Moon,
Yona,
and then Sailor Moon highlight the medium, complex story centered on female strength. But they're my outliers. Bullshit, they do.
Oh
Hannah.
My God, do you not watch anime? Because I'm sitting there like,
she's a big anime watcher.
If you even watch Retro Crush for a couple of hours, I guarantee you most of what you're going to see are like female led. You're going to have Lum. You're going to have Bubblegum Crisis.
Slayers.
You know what I'm saying? Slayers. Slayer's still on there, but yeah, oh God, Lena Inverse was awesome. She was.
We have Kagome from Inuyasha and stuff.
Inuyasha's
a lot of the characters in Inuyasha are strong female characters.
Yeah.
And of varying, different personality and different versions of strength.
Yeah.
So this is bullshit. This whole thing is a load of crap.
Yeah, it's a load of crap. Look, this is one of those sites from that network that churns out loads of crap by the minute. Like, I mean, we're talking, like, I swear to God, you look at these sites and they publish like 100+ articles a day. It's insane.
But I was just like, clearly, because you're going to buy everything. Avatar, Kim Possible, all these things around the same time, roughly within the same time frame. This person obviously grew up as they were a kid when these shows were out, and that's all they consider.
Yeah. Whatever. We had it pretty good. Actually, we ate pretty good in the 80s. Like, I'm looking at all these shows. I'm like, God, we had some really good shows. And it's so weird. I mean, for all of the millennials attacking 80s shows as being, misogynistic and homophobic and blah, 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 blah. And toy commercials, boy, they sure do love to work on the IP now, don't they?
Right. And you know
they
what?
Sure want to reboot it now.
As a girl who grew up in this time frame, right? I'm going to look at it from a female perspective. I never thought there was nothing I couldn't do. Like, even Barbie, like, we girls can do anything, with the Barbie commercials and stuff. I never gave it a thought that, I couldn't do everything a guy could do. Like, I never even considered it. Like, I remember my mom was really mad. My mom went down. I told this story before, but when I was in junior high, the one assistant principal and then the guidance counselor. It might have been the guidance counselor. When the kids were like putting in for scheduling and what you wanted to be when you grew up, I had talked about like aerospace engineering and several things like that. And I did not have the brains for that, as it turned out, which not good at math. But he was telling all these girls they had to be secretaries because they were girls. My mother, and he didn't do it to me, but he did it to a couple other girls that were in scouts with me. And my mom went to school. My mom was like, oh, hell no, you're not telling these kids, these girls, that
give it up and lay on your backs, ladies. That's how you make your money.
My mom was livid. Now, my mom used to run an airport. At the time, she was an FBO of an airport. And back then, it was very unheard of for women to be running that stuff. And, so for me, I never thought anything of it. Like, my mom does this kind of stuff all the time, and my mom says I can do anything I want to do. And then the shows were telling me, women could do everything a man could do, and they could do everything they want to do.
Listen to Barbie.
Right. And Barbie was telling me the same thing. So it's like, for all their shit talking about these shows, about how they portrayed women, as somebody who was there and who was a girl, because of those shows, because of Barbie, because of people like my mother, I never thought for a minute I couldn't do whatever I wanted to do. It wasn't until I got older that I started to see people acting like this guidance counselor did, or, even, later on, like, oh, women can't do that shit. I'm like, what the hell we can't? Of course, you're telling me I can't do it. I'm going to go do it just to prove you wrong. But, it never occurred to me, like, for all these shows to be so bad, and so they weren't showing girls, diversity, they weren't showing girls what they could do. That's not true, because it never even dawned on me that I couldn't do something, or that someone would think I couldn't do something because I was a girl. And the shows did not teach me that I was limited. Trust me.
Yeah. Actually, back then, a lot of it was, He-Man, we had TLA and the Sorceress, who was the most powerful character on the show. And I didn't think as a guy, as a boy, I didn't think anything of it. Well,
no, back then, boys and girls liked the same shows and had the same toys. Like, it wasn't, all the boy and girl aisle. Back then, boys had Care Bears, girls had Care Bears. Boys had Cabbage Patch Kids, girls had Cabbage Patch Kids. Boys and girls both had He-Man toys. No one thought anything of it.
Well, that's where, I guess that's where She-Ra came from, was they realized a lot of girls like Tila. But actually, the part of the reason they did that back then was because everybody didn't have their own screen, so they didn't segregate the animation as much. So they knew, like, well, we need the girls to watch G.I. Joe and we need the boys to watch Gem. So we'll put some action and stuff and a couple of male characters in Gem to keep the boys hooked. And then for the girls, we got Scarlet and the Baroness, and, try to
and everybody watched the same things. Everybody wanted the same toys. Back then, game systems were advertised to both boys and girls and everything else. Like, for all this narrative that, it was boys only, that was not true. I was there. Not true. I was far more progressive, then, especially than it was recent year.
We're going backwards. Like, I mean, because I remember, like, boys in my class in elementary school were bringing their damn Care Bears to school with them, and it was fine. Nobody made fun of them. Nobody said, hey, that's
all the boys wanted
Care
Cabbage
Bears
Patch
are for
Kids,
bitches,
all the boys wanted Cash Patch Kids, same as the girls.
Yeah.
Like everybody had them. And like, you know, I used to play dolls with my sister and then go play Transformers and Mask with my brother. And, you know, my favorite thing was Barbie, but I'd play whatever. I would play G.I. Joe at school at recess with the kids. I always got to be Scarlet. It was great.
I got to be Destro.
For real?
Yeah, I always wanted to be Destro. Destro's my favorite.
Because I was going to say that would be the most you thing I could think of.
I feel like, Destro was badass. I thought he was a robot.
Like that. I was like, that's why I was like, are you kidding? Or are you serious? Because I can see you doing it.
I love Destro because the first G.I. Joe comic I got had Destro on the cover. And I want to say it was, I can't remember off the top of my head. It was like 14 or something. It has him on the cover and it has a personnel carrier in the background. Very, very cool cover. Very dynamic. But I got the Destro action figure. And this is, I read the comic, but I didn't fully understand what was going on with him. So I thought he was a robot like Darth. I thought Darth Vader was a robot too. So I thought, you know, so I was very disappointed when Return of the Jedi came out. And it's like, wait, Darth Vader's not a robot. He's some pasty, fat British guy. What the frick? You lied to me. He's a robot.
But like, you said about like those shows and stuff back then too. The shows, like they would air the G.I. Joe like every night, so many minutes a night for like 5 days. They would do it for, you know, everybody went to see the Rainbow Bright and the Star Stealer. Like
I went to the theater to go see that. My grandmother took me to go see it, and I was a kid when it came out. But yeah, it was actually pretty dark. Like I was talking to Pinky Boo about it, and it's like, yeah, I think they offed the princess, and then they had the boy with the robot horse, and I thought he was pretty cool. Yeah,
but I'm just saying, like. It was made for everybody, and you didn't think anything of it. Like, Rainbow Bright was the lead character, but she had sidekicks that were boys, and you're like, okay, cool. But, you know, it was normal.
If anything, a lot of times the boy characters, I think about this, the boy characters were the stereotypes, because always like, okay, we got the boy sidekick, so we're going to have the sporty one.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have, you know, but they're always like, okay, this boy sidekick, he's going to like play baseball and stuff. That's what, you know what I'm saying? Or he's going to be on a skateboard because he's a radical dude.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. They knew boys and girls were both watching it. So they were trying to still, like, give kids different characters to relate to. And sometimes the characters you related to were the same gender as you. And that was fun because there was nuance and kids weren't stupid. But, you know, anyway, Avatar, completely agree. Great show. Still one of the best. Love Avatar. 100% agree with you, and representation is done well. That being said, I will fight you constantly on your bullshit narrative that thank God Avatar came to break the mold and change it, because you are wrong.
Yeah, you're very, very wrong.
Very
you weren't
wrong.
There, you wouldn't know. But hell, even the 70s. I go back to the 70s.
Yeah, 70s too. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, Wonder Woman was a thing, and we had all kinds of animated shows back then that had female characters that were so.
Yeah, I know, but you know, whatever. Somebody who wasn't around thinks whatever. Well, they don't really think. That's the problem.
Google is your friend, there, Hannah. Use Google. Go watch some of this old stuff, and then come back and tell us how there wasn't strong representation. We're gonna wrap this up.
Yep. Sorry it went long, guys. I was pissed. Anyway,
please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.
For more pop culture news, views, and rants, go to news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com.